What's up, book nerds? My name is Tara, and this is my March wrap-up and my February TBR. March was a pretty average reading month for me. I did finish 6 books and started another 3 or 4 that I'm sort of in the middle of, in addition to, of course, reading hundreds of pages a week for grad school, so I still count 6 books a week as pretty good success. The first book I read in March was Snuff by Chuck Palahniuk, and I think I'm pronouncing that right. This was a recommendation by Mike at Slice of Mike, and he gave this as one of his sort of anti-Valentine's Day recommendations because it is a book about a porn film. There's a porn star and she is making a film with 600 men in one night trying to break a world record. And they say at the very beginning of the book that this becomes a snuff film, but they don't explain exactly what that is. And you see it through the eyes of 4 of the different men that are participating in the film. So this was a little bit of a good deviation from a lot of the YA that I read. I'm very interested in the sex industry and a lot of how America treats sex, and this kind of touched into that. I will have to say I gave it 3 or 4 stars. I think I gave it 3 stars out of 5. It was my first Chuck Palahniuk novel. I'd never read Fight Club or seen the movie, so going in blind, though after the fact it seems a lot of people didn't actually like this book. I didn't feel that strongly about it, but it's also probably because I'm not comparing it to his entire body of work when I'm reading it without any background on him. The second book I finished I had as an ebook. It's called The Fangirl's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a nonfiction book that I think comes out in May, so it's not available yet. I'll do a full review of it on my blog closer to the date of the book's release. But it is a book about being a fangirl, and it's a good introduction, probably more for like the middle school and high school set, as to what different fandoms are, the terminologies, and how one can participate more and also deal with some of the pitfalls that come with fandom, especially for girls, like being called a fake geek girl or dealing with unwanted sexual content online and things like that. So while it was not something that is really relevant to me personally, there's a cat. While it was not something that was really relevant to me personally, it was relevant to me professionally because I am looking at books as a fandom for my research. So I thought it was interesting that this book exists, and I would definitely recommend it for anybody with very enthusiastic fangirls in their lives that would benefit from a book giving them some guidance about that culture. The third book I finished in March was actually To All the Boys I Loved Before, which was my pick from my TBR jar that I picked in January, so I'm a little bit behind on catching up with this. I did a full review of this, so you can check that out. Gave it 4 stars, enjoyable. Don't know that I'll finish the series, but it was definitely a nice fluffy read that was a good distraction from all the Foucault and Deleuze that I had to read this month. It was nice to get inside of just a good little romance novel for a change. The fourth book I read was We All Looked Up by Tommy Wallach, and this was quite the disappointment. I love apocalyptic novels, and this was the story of 4 different teenagers dealing with the potential of a meteor hitting the Earth. My review ended up being a 3-star review, and maybe that was a little bit generous because I just felt like none of the characters were fully developed, and I kind of had an inkling at the beginning of the book where the ending was going to go, and I had a feeling I was going to be disappointed, and I was immensely disappointed. So not anything that I was really hoping for, and not something that I would necessarily recommend reading because there are a lot of other better we're all gonna die books out there. The fifth book I read was a very pleasant surprise. It was The Bunker Diary by Kevin Brooks, and I did post a review of this last week, which I will link down below as well, and there's a review up on my blog. I loved this book. It is a tale of 6 people trapped in a bunker underneath the ground and how they're going to get out, and it was just horrible and depressing and terrifying and psychologically just wrecked me, and I loved it. So I was looking for maybe something a little different from To All the Boys I Loved Before to get kind of the opposite end of that YA spectrum. And apparently it's a very controversial little book that a lot of people think that kids shouldn't read it, but I think everyone should read it. You may hate it, you may hate the ending, but I sure think it would create some great discussion, and so I would love to see more people giving this book a try. So highly recommended, and if you do check that out, let me know so we can talk about it. And then the final book I read that I will have a review of, I think on Wednesday, is None of the Above by I.W. Gregorio. I've already filmed that review. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think this is a very important book, but not necessarily one of my favorites in terms of the plot, but it deals with intersex teenagers and gives a lot of background knowledge on that and some of the controversies with the medical issues for the intersex community. So I think it's very great that this book exists, and I hope that the existence of this book means that we are going to see more books about intersex teenagers, because we need to represent all of the aspects of the LGBT spectrum in our literature. So this is the first step, and I do recommend it. 4 stars is definitely a great rating, so definitely check this one out. So now on to my April TBR. The first step is to go to my TBR jar, and all I have in here are just book titles. I haven't done it like everybody else with challenges, because I just have literal books that I need to get off of my shelf. So picking my book, my first TBR book for April is another Jenny Han book. It's The Summer I Turned Pretty. So I have that up on my shelf upstairs. I will pull that out and try to read it maybe in April or maybe in May. We'll see. And the other books I have coming up on my TBR, I still need to read Cinder. Let's not talk about how I've said forever that I'm going to read this book. I promise I am a little ways in. It is good. Y'all, school really lays low this week, so pretty much my semester's over. That should give me some time to sit down and read this. In addition, I have started The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I'm maybe a quarter of the way through that. It's definitely really good. It just for some reason feels like sometimes I can't just listen to it for hours on end because I'm doing the audiobook. So hopefully I'll finish that maybe by the end of the month. I'm also reading a book called The Innovators: How a Group of Hackers, Geniuses, and Geeks Created the Digital Revolution, and that's by Walter Isaacson. And then I also really need to get to 3 other books. I'm on a blog tour for 99 Days by Katie Cotugno, so I will need to finish that in April. Also on a blog tour for The Conspiracy of Blood and Smoke by Anne Blankman, which is the sequel to The Prisoner of Night and Fog. Very much looking forward to that. I loved The Prisoner of Night and Fog last year. It's historical fiction set in Munich in the 1930s, pre-World War II, and so this continues that story. And then finally, I do have the audiobook of Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, which I know that a couple of people have said they might want to buddy read or read in April, so I plan to get to that as well so I can finally know what all of this buzz is about. So that's what my March and April looked like. If you want to share the books that you have read in March that you really liked, or books that you're looking forward to read in April, that would be great. I'd love to chat with you about that as always. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I tried to start filming, and then the cat decided to join me. This is why I always have cat hair all over